Hello, in this exercise we're going to create a DBMS scheduler job. Which is going to populate a table. It's going to work through DBMS scheduler, and I'm going to build it through both SQL Plus and through grid control, a little both. And so the first thing I want to do is connect to the database. Alter user HR identify HR. Alter user HR count and grant create job to HR. So HR is going to be the owner of this procedure and scheduler. So okay, so now let's connect to HR. Connect to HR. Create table. Let's call it test table one. Time stamp. Which timestamp is a date and job name is bar car 2 100, and then select count star test table one. Right. Okay, so currently it's empty. So now let's go to grid control. I have to have that in another window, or this is database control actually. So the first thing we want to do is we actually want to create a procedure. So I'll hit create. The procedure is going to be called test proc1. It's going to be owned by HR, and we're going to pass one parameter. P job name. It's going to be in, and it's going to be var car2. And in the body, we're going to say insert into test table 1 values sysdate, p job name commit. Now let's do show SQL. Return. We'll say OK, and it is valid. This is an important point. So the job is valid. So that's great. I want this job to work within a DBMS scheduler window. So the first thing I want to do is create a window. So I'm going to say create. Windows are always owned by sys, so we're going to call this just a test window. We are going to start at 5 o'clock p.m. The duration is going to be 4 hours. We are going to repeat by day, and we are going to repeat again at 5 o'clock in the evening. Let's go ahead and show SQL. Return. Say OK, and the job is created, it's enabled, and it's currently not active. Okay, so good. So we created a procedure and we created a window. So the next thing we have to do is actually create a job. Let's create. The job's going to be owned by HR. It's currently not going to be enabled. You want to do this step, the very last thing. We're going to call this test job 1. And the first thing we want to do is associate this with a procedure. HR test proc1. Say OK. And it already knows that test proc1 takes one parameter, so let's just call this test job name. So, okay, so all's good here. Now we need to associate with the schedule. This is the job itself that runs test proc1, and it goes with a particular schedule, and the schedule is going to be the window, the predefined window that we've just created called test window. There it is. Say select. We go back to general. Still not enabled, but that's okay. So show SQL, we return. Now at the very last, let's enable it and say OK. So now we have a job. It should be toward the bottom here. Yes. And it's never been run. So let's go back to our SQL Plus. Let's actually connect to A, select count star HR.test table 1. Now, the next thing we need to do is let's artificially open up the window. The window will open up at 5 o'clock in the evening, but let's go ahead and open that window now. So we go exec dbms scheduler dot open window test window. Now let's count star from HR.test table 1 and see it's populated. So let's go ahead and close the window. dbms scheduler dot close window test window, and let's go ahead and select this again. Let's do this one more time. Let's go ahead and open the window. Shoot. Go ahead and open the window. Let's go ahead and close the window. And let's go ahead and count one more time. And we should have 2. And we do. So let's go back to grid control or database control, and let's refresh this particular screen and go back down to test job 1, and we should see over here. It's too far over. We see now the job is run twice. So once the job is run through the scheduler, it keeps a running count of how many times it's actually run, and it's run twice. Now, one other thing I wanted to show was, let's go back to SQL Plus. We can actually just run this job independently outside of the scheduler. We can say exec dbms scheduler dot run job, and it's called hr.test job 1. And once we do that, then let's test the count again. And so, let's try one more time. Okay, so it's now incremented up to 3. But if you go back to this particular window, and let's refresh one more time, and go down to the bottom, we see test job 1, and it's still only run twice. So what this means is that when you run the run job sort of ad hoc, not through the scheduler, it will do what it's supposed to do, but it won't increment that counter. And that's what I wanted to show through this particular exercise. Okay, so this is a second exercise in creating a job in dbms scheduler. This one is closer to what we saw on the OCM exam. In the OCM exam, we had to rebuild all the HR indexes, and we had to do this through dbms scheduler, and we used db control to do that. The problem was that not all the indexes were normal, and so that was actually the trick. So the first thing I want to do is actually log into the database. Select, first of all, let's unlock the HR user. So alter user HR identified by HR, alter user HR account unlock, and alter grant create job to HR. Now let's do this also. Select index type partitioned count star from DBA indexes where owner is equal to HR, group by index type and partition order by 2. So out of the box, HR has two different types of indexes, a total of 19 indexes, 18 of which are normal, one of which is this is an IoT. So with normal indexes, we're going to run alter index rebuilds, but with IoTs, you have to do an alter table move. So it's as simple as that. But as I recall doing the exam, I thought there were some lobs and some other things in it too. And that's going to be more complicated, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And I'll show this SQL block where I try to address that. But so the first thing we want to do is let's go ahead and create a job that takes care of this, to rebuild both the normal type of indexes and the IoTs. So first of all, let's go over here. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a window called the test window. This is very similar to what I did in the previous example. So let's go ahead and do that. Test window, test window. We're going to start at PM. We're going to repeat by day, starting at 5 p.m. We'll show the SQL just for fun and say OK. Now I've created the test window, and let's edit it back. I want to run for 4 hours. So now let's go back. And actually, this just needs to be refreshed. Let's see what would happen if I do this. Okay, well, anyway, it's for 4 hours, but the point is right now it's not active, so we're going to have to make it active at some point. So, okay, so we created a test window, so now let's go ahead and create a procedure. Let's create. It's going to be owned by HR, and it's going to be called rebuild indexes. And we're not going to pass any parameters. Let's just do that. But let's see. We want to say for the index in select index name table name partitioned index type from user indexes, and that's now if the index type is equal to normal, then we want to execute immediate alter index b index dot index name name rebuild else it's the IoT, else execute immediate alter table the index.table name move. So this is as simple as that. So if it's a normal index, we're going to say alter index rebuild. If it's an IoT, we're going to say alter table move. And let's go ahead and show the SQL and come back. And let's see if it compiles properly. And it does. So that's good. So now let's go. We've created a procedure now and a window. So let's go back to, let's go ahead and create a program. And we're going to create, it's going to be owned by sys, I'm sorry, by HR. It's going to be called rebuild indexes program. And we're not doing a, we're going to call it PL SQL procedure. Let's go ahead and select that procedure. It's HR rebuild indexes. It does. Okay. So let's do that. Let's show the SQL, and we return, and we say, okay. So we now have a rebuild indexes program. Okay, and then let's go back, and now let's create a job. And let's create, it's going to be owned by HR. It's going to be rebuild indexes job. And we're going to be using a program called HR rebuild indexes prog, I think, actually. Make sure I can find it. Yes. So we say, okay, that it's enabled now. Oh, we need to give it a schedule, and we're going to give it a predefined window of the test window that we created. So let's go back to general, show SQL, there it is, we return, and we say okay. Alright, so now we've created a job, and let's go ahead and run it. So let's see the best way to do that. Probably the best way to do that is go back over here, and the first thing I want to do is find out the the last DDL time. So let's look at that. So select min last DDL. In fact, let's save this. Host vi test.sql. Select min last DDL time. Max last DDL time from DBA objects where owner is equal to HR and object type is equal to index. And that should be good. So let's call it test. And test.sql, make sure. Okay, oh, show what we should also do is host test.sql. Alter session set NLS date format is equal to mm/d/ mm January HH24 SS. SS. Test.sql. All right, so this is currently the last DDL time of the job of all of the indexes that are owned by HR. So now let's go ahead and open the test window artificially. So I'm going to say exec dbms scheduler dot open window test window comma null comma true. Okay, and then let's briefly go back over to here, and let's look at see if that job shows up. And here's the rebuild indexes job. So it looks like it's finished. Let's go back over here again, and now let's look at that test.sql, and we can see that the DDL time has changed. So let's go ahead and close the DBMS scheduler, close window, test window. Okay, so we're done there. So the thing is, we need to run that particular query, this particular query first if presented to do the same thing again, where if we're doing a job to rebuild the indexes, figure out what indexes there were, and then try to recompile them. The test here was to use the last DDL time, because then you can see that the indexes actually got rebuilt. Problem is that if you have other things besides either normal indexes or IoTs, and I began something over here and was not very completely successful. So let's just kind of take a look at it real fast. But I looked at other owners of indexes besides HR, sales history, for example, at Apex, and if the index types were normal or bitmapped or domain or function-based normal or function-based domain, all of those you can use the alter index rebuild as long as they're non-partitioned. If they were partitioned, then you have to do the alter index rebuild partition in the partition name. And all that's fine and good, except the last DDL time doesn't get reflected in DBA objects, but it gets reflected in the DBA IND partitions. The partitions, there's a date in there that gets updated. So we can't use the last DDL time in DBA objects. Again, if you see the IoT thing, we did an alter table move, which you saw earlier. And then if we have lobs, then it gets even trickier. So for lobs, you have to say alter table name, move lob, column name, store as tablespace and tablespace name. And you have to use DBA lobs to do it. But it gets even more complicated because some of the lobs are based on not just regular data types, but V arrays. And then if that happens, then it gets much more complicated. So I left that out of this particular exercise, but I wanted you to see this particular SQL block to understand, what's entailed if once we're back at the OCM exam, and we might see some indexes besides normal and IoT tops. And that's it for this particular session.